Shalom, my friends. Right now, as you're watching this video, there are over 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in an average of $90,000 in household debt, desperately manifesting wealth, visualizing abundance, and posting vision boards on their refrigerators. Yet their bank accounts remain frozen in the same frustrating digits month after month. The self-help industry has sold us the beautiful lie that we can think and grow rich, that the universe owes us prosperity simply because we desire it. But there's an ancient wisdom encoded in the Torah thousands of years ago that reveals a shocking truth. God doesn't bless wishes, He blesses work, not just any work, but strategic, purposeful labor in what the Torah calls the field. You see, the American dream has been hijacked by a dangerous distortion. We've been taught that wanting something badly enough, believing in it intensely enough, or claiming it boldly enough will magically materialize prosperity. Social media influencers sell courses on money mindset. Spiritual gurus promise that raising your vibration will attract wealth, and even some religious leaders preach a gospel of name it and claim it. Meanwhile, credit card debt in America has surpassed $1.13 trillion. Student loans have crippled an entire generation with $1.77 trillion in debt, and families are one emergency away from financial catastrophe. The question nobody wants to ask is this: if positive thinking alone created wealth, why are so many positive thinkers still broke? The Torah presents a radically different paradigm. One that doesn't minimize the power of faith, but channels it through the divine architecture of work. When God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden, the Hebrew text reveals something most translations miss. He was placed there to work it and to guard it. Genesis 2:15. This wasn't punishment. This was before the fall. Work wasn't a curse. It was the original design for human flourishing. The Hebrew word for work, avodah, is the same word used for worship. In the divine economy, your labor isn't separate from your spirituality. Your field, your career, your business, your craft becomes the very place where heaven touches earth and multiplication happens. What you're about to discover in this video will challenge everything the modern prosperity movement has taught you, but it will also liberate you from the exhausting cycle of wishing without working, desiring without discipline, and praying without planting. The Torah doesn't promise that God will drop money from the sky while you sit idle. Instead, it reveals the precise mechanism through which divine blessing flows, through the consecrated field of your labor. This isn't about working harder, it's about working in alignment with the ancient laws that govern how heaven multiplies what's on earth. Stay with me, because what you learn in the next few minutes could be the breakthrough that finally transforms your financial frustration into the abundance you've been desperately seeking. The average American household is trapped in a financial prison of its own making, yet the bars are invisible because they've been painted with the colors of manifestation and positive energy. According to the Federal Reserve, American consumers collectively owe over $17 trillion in debt, with the average household carrying nearly $145,000 when you include mortgages, auto loans, credit cards, and student debt. But here's what's truly disturbing. While drowning in this debt, millions of Americans are simultaneously spending billions of dollars on self-help programs, manifestation courses, and law of attraction seminars that promise wealth without the Torah's fundamental requirement, actual work. We've created a culture where people are more familiar with vision boards than with budgets, more committed to affirmations than to applied effort, and more invested in feeling abundant than in actually building wealth through disciplined labor. The Torah anticipated this exact delusion thousands of years ago. In Proverbs 28:19, Solomon, who knew something about wealth, being one of the richest men in history, wrote, "He who works his land will have abundant food, but the one who chases fantasies will have his fill of poverty." Notice the contrast, working versus chasing. The Hebrew word for chases is radaf, which means to pursue with intensity, to run after with great passion. Solomon isn't condemning desire, he's condemning the disconnection between desire and disciplined action. America's financial crisis isn't fundamentally about income inequality or systemic oppression. Those are real factors, but they're not the root. The root is that we've been sold a spiritual fantasy, that the universe is a vending machine where you insert positive thoughts and receive material wealth, bypassing the divine mechanism God established for multiplication, which is consecrated labor in your designated field. This disconnect has created what I call spiritual poverty consciousness, disguised as abundance mindset. You see it everywhere. People posting on social media about their millionaire mindset while their electricity is about to be shut off. Influencers selling courses on manifestation while living in their parents' basement. Prosperity preachers promising financial breakthrough while their congregation members can't afford basic health care. The Torah offers something radically different, not a denial of God's desire to bless you. He absolutely wants to prosper you, but a revelation of the mechanism through which that blessing flows. The ancient Hebrew sages understood what modern Americans have forgotten. God's blessings don't bypass natural laws, they work through them. You can't think and grow rich any more than you can think and grow muscles. You must work the field, and when you do, when you align your labor with divine principles, that's when supernatural multiplication occurs. The tragedy of the American debt crisis isn't that people don't want prosperity, it's that they've been taught to want it the wrong way, through imagination divorced from implementation, through desire disconnected from the disciplined cultivation of their God-given field. In Torah wisdom, the field isn't just a metaphor, it's a precise spiritual technology for wealth creation that most Americans have never been taught. When God created Adam, the Hebrew text of Genesis 2:15 says, "The Lord God took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it." The word Eden comes from a root meaning delight or pleasure, and the word for garden in Hebrew is gan, which specifically denotes an enclosed, cultivated space. Here's what this reveals. God didn't place Adam in a wilderness and tell him to wander. He placed him in a specific, defined area of responsibility with clear boundaries and gave him work to do within those boundaries. Your field is your specific area of gifting, skill, opportunity, and responsibility. It's the career you've been given, the business you're building, the craft you've developed, the profession you're in. It's not someone else's field, it's yours. And the Torah's shocking promise is this: when you work your field with excellence, integrity, and consistency, God multiplies the harvest beyond natural explanation. Most Americans are failing financially not because they're lazy, but because they're working the wrong field, or refusing to work any field at all, waiting instead for a financial miracle to drop from heaven. This is the crucial distinction the Torah makes between biblical faith and modern magical thinking. Biblical faith says, "I will plant seed in the field God has given me, water it consistently, pull the weeds, protect it from thieves, and trust that God will give the increase beyond what my labor alone could produce." Modern magical thinking says, "I will visualize the harvest, claim the abundance, speak it into existence, and expect it to appear without my hands ever touching soil." The Torah categorically rejects this approach. In 2 Thessalonians 3:10, Paul, a Torah-observant Jew, writes, "If anyone is not willing to work, neither should he eat." This isn't cruelty. This is divine architecture. God has designed the universe in such a way that blessing flows through the channel of consecrated labor, not around it. Your field might be medicine, education, technology, sales, construction, art, or any of 1,000 other domains. But whatever it is, that's where your multiplication happens. The Hebrew word for blessing, brasha, comes from a root that means to kneel or to bow down, and it's connected to the word for pool or reservoir. A blessing isn't just a nice thought or good feeling, it's a reservoir of divine energy that God releases over your field when you work it according to His principles. Think about Isaac in Genesis 26:12. Isaac planted crops in that land and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. Notice the sequence. He planted, he worked his field. And in that same field, God multiplied the results 100 times beyond what the seed could naturally produce. This is the Torah pattern. You provide the labor, God provides the multiplication. You can't have the multiplication without the labor, but the labor alone won't produce the multiplication without God's blessing. The field is where these two realities, human responsibility and divine provision, meet and create supernatural abundance. The tragedy is that millions of Americans are standing outside their field, looking at everyone else's harvest, posting motivational quotes about abundance, while their own field sits unplowed, unplanted, and barren because they've been taught that claiming is a substitute for cultivating. The Torah reveals an uncomfortable truth that demolishes the entire foundation of the modern law of attraction movement. God doesn't respond to wishes. He responds to work aligned with His will. The Hebrew word for desire or covet is shamed, and it appears in the Ten Commandments, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house or anything that belongs to your neighbor." Exodus 20:17. What makes this commandment so significant is that it's the only one of the 10 that deals purely with internal desire, not external action. God is teaching us something profound. Loose, undisciplined desire, wanting what belongs to someone else, wanting things without the willingness to work your own field for them, isn't just ineffective, it's spiritually toxic. It creates what the Torah calls ayin ra, an evil eye, which is a consciousness of lack, comparison, and entitlement that actually repels blessing rather than attracting it. Here's the mechanism most Americans don't understand. Desire without direction becomes destruction. The U.S. financial landscape is littered with the wreckage of undisciplined desire. The average American has 3.84 credit cards with an average balance of $6,501 per card, representing not just debt, but the materialization of desires that were pursued without the discipline of working a field to pay for them. The buy now, pay later culture, the lottery mentality. Americans spend over $92 billion annually on lottery tickets, more than on movies, music, and books combined. The get-rich-quick schemes that proliferate on social media. All of this flows from what the Torah identifies as loose desires, wants that are disconnected from the willingness to work a field. Proverbs 13:4 states it plainly, "The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied." Notice that both the sluggard and the diligent have desire. Everyone wants prosperity, but only the diligent, the one who works their field, actually receives the supply. Desire is not enough. Desire must be married to discipline, and discipline means showing up to your field every single day. The ancient rabbis taught a principle called hishtadlut, which means human effort or initiative. They said that miracles happen, but they happen through the door of human action, not in spite of it. When the Israelites were trapped at the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army pursuing them, they cried out to God for deliverance. God's response through Moses was shocking. "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward." Exodus 14:15. In other words, move toward your field, take action, and then I will split the sea. The miracle came, but it came through their willingness to step forward into what looked impossible. This is the exact opposite of what modern Americans are being taught by prosperity gurus. We're told to let go, to release resistance, to trust the universe, to essentially become passive recipients, waiting for abundance to arrive. But the Torah pattern is always, you move toward your field, hishtadlut. You work it with excellence, and then God releases supernatural multiplication, siyata d'shmaya, help from heaven. Loose desires, wants without work, dreams without discipline, vision without a field to plant it in, don't just fail to attract blessing, they actually create a spiritual blockage. God is looking for a field to bless, and if you haven't plowed one, if you haven't planted seeds through consistent labor, there's nothing for Him to multiply. Your desires are valid, but they must be focused through the lens of work, channeled into the cultivation of your specific field, or they remain nothing more than wishes that evaporate in the harsh light of reality. The Torah provides a precise blueprint for how God multiplies resources, and it has nothing to do with positive affirmations or vision boards. It has everything to do with strategic work in your assigned field. In Deuteronomy 28:8, God promises, "The Lord will command the blessing on you in your storehouses and in all that you undertake, and He will bless you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you." Notice the three elements: storehouses, You must have a place to store what you produce, meaning you must actually produce something. All that you undertake, you must be actively undertaking work, not passively waiting, and the land, your specific field of responsibility. When these three elements align, you're working, you're producing, you're managing, that's when God commands the blessing. The Hebrew word here for command is tsava, which means to direct with authority, to decree. This isn't a suggestion or a possibility, it's a divine mandate. When you fulfill your end, working your field, God mandates blessing from His end. The Torah's financial wisdom operates on a principle that revolutionizes how Americans should think about wealth. Multiplication doesn't happen through addition, it happens through cultivation. Look at the parable of the talents in Matthew 25:14-30. The master gives different amounts to 3 servants, 5 talents to one, 2 to another, 1 to the third. The ones who received 5 and 2 immediately went and worked with them. The Greek word ergazomai means to labor, to toil, to be active in business. They didn't just hold the talents, admire them, or visualize them multiplying. They put them to work in their respective fields. The result? Both doubled their master's investment. The one who received 1 talent buried it, afraid of losing it, and when the master returned, he received nothing, and even what he had was taken away. The American middle class is currently living out this parable in reverse. Paralyzed by fear, overwhelmed by debt, they're burying their talents, their time, their skills, their opportunities, instead of working them in their field. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American spends 2.8 hours per day watching television and only 17 minutes per day investing in personal development or skill building. That's not a field being worked. That's a talent being buried. Here's the Torah multiplication formula that actually works. First, identify your field. What has God uniquely equipped you to do? What problems can you solve? What value can you create? Second, consecrate it. Pray over it. Dedicate it to God's purposes. Commit to excellence and integrity in it. Third, work it consistently. Show up every day. Plant seeds through your labor. Remove obstacles. Protect what's growing. Fourth, sow generously. Give from your first fruits. Support others. Create value beyond just what you're paid for. Fifth, expect supernatural increase. This is faith. Not faith that replaces work, but faith that partners with work. When Isaac planted crops in Genesis 26:12 and reaped 100-fold in the same year, it wasn't magic. It was the Torah blueprint in action. He identified his field, agriculture, in the land of Gerar. He worked it. He planted, he managed, he protected it from the Philistines who envied him, and God multiplied it supernaturally. 100-fold return was impossible through natural farming alone. The same blueprint works in 21st century America, whether your field is real estate, healthcare, education, technology, or any other domain. The variables change, but the divine mathematics remain constant. Consecrated labor in your assigned field. Pil, God's blessing. Multiplication that defies natural explanation. Americans don't need more manifestation techniques. They need to get back to their fields and work them according to the ancient wisdom that has created lasting wealth for thousands of years. There's a demonic principality that has infiltrated American culture, and the Torah identifies it clearly: the poverty spirit. This isn't just about lacking money. It's a mentality, a way of thinking that keeps people trapped in financial frustration, regardless of how much they earn. The poverty spirit whispers lies like, rich people are greedy, money is the root of all evil, misquoting 1 Timothy 6:10, which actually says, the love of money is a root of evil. I'll never get ahead, or the system is rigged against me. But here's what's even more insidious. The poverty spirit has learned to disguise itself as spirituality, teaching people that wanting wealth is worldly, that struggling financially is somehow more holy, or on the flip side, that you can have wealth without work through higher consciousness. The Torah demolishes both extremes. In Deuteronomy 8:18, God says, "You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you power to get wealth." Notice, God gives you power to get wealth. Not wealth itself dropped from heaven, but the ability, the strength, the faculties to actually work and create it. The Hebrew concept of parnassah, provision or livelihood, is fundamentally tied to labor. The ancient rabbis taught that when God provides for you, He does so through the skills of your hands, the wisdom of your mind, and the opportunities He places before you, but you must activate these through work. Breaking the poverty spirit in American culture requires embracing what the Torah calls the Issachar anointing. In Genesis 49:14-15, Jacob blesses his son Issachar. Issachar is a strong donkey, crouching between the sheepfolds. When he saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulder to bear and became a servant at forced labor. This is a strange blessing, comparing someone to a donkey doing forced labor until you understand what it represents. Issachar saw the opportunity, the good land, and instead of just wishing for it or visualizing owning it, he bowed his shoulder to bear. He committed to the hard, sometimes unglamorous work required to possess it. The tribe of Issachar became known for two things: wisdom and hard work. They understood the times, 1 Chronicles 12:32, and they understood that wisdom without work is worthless. The poverty spirit is broken when Americans stop looking for shortcuts and start cultivating their fields with the Issachar mindset. According to research from the Pew Research Center, 61% of Americans believe the economic system unfairly favors the powerful, and while there are certainly systemic issues that need addressing, this belief often becomes an excuse for inaction, a way to blame external forces rather than taking responsibility for the field you've been given. The Torah doesn't deny that some fields are harder than others, that some people face obstacles others don't. Joseph was sold into slavery, thrown into prison on false charges, and forgotten by those he helped. His field was brutal, unjust, and rigged against him by any measure. Yet Genesis 39:2-3 says, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands." Even in prison, even in slavery, Joseph worked his field, whatever field he was given in that moment, with such excellence that God's blessing became undeniable. This is the poverty spirit's worst nightmare. Someone who refuses to use their circumstances as an excuse for inaction, who works their field regardless of obstacles, and trusts God to multiply their labor. That mindset, applied consistently across America, would transform the financial landscape more than any government program or economic policy ever could. The poverty spirit cannot coexist with the consecrated work ethic the Torah prescribes. Everything we've discussed collapses into uselessness if it doesn't translate into practical action you can implement starting today. So let's get specific about how to apply Torah principles to transform your actual financial situation in America's current economy. First, you must conduct what I call a field audit. Get alone with God and ask Him honestly, what is my field? What has He uniquely equipped you to do? What problems can you solve for others? What value can you create in the marketplace? For many Americans, the answer is right in front of them. It's the job they're currently underperforming in because they see it as just a paycheck rather than a field to cultivate. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men." When you transform your current employment from a job you're enduring into a field you're consecrating to God, excellence becomes inevitable, and with excellence comes promotion, favor, and financial increase. Second, you must stop the bleeding. And for most Americans, the bleeding is unnecessary spending driven by loose desires rather than disciplined budgeting. The Torah principle of Mishneh, doubling from Deuteronomy 17:18, teaches that kings were required to write a copy of the law and read it all the days of their lives to stay grounded. Apply this to your finances. Write down every dollar you spend for 30 days, creating a copy, Mishneh, of your financial life. You'll be shocked at how much money is flowing out of your field through Amazon purchases. subscription services you forgot about, DoorDash orders that cost 3 times what cooking would cost, and impulse buys that provide temporary dopamine hits but permanent debt. The average American household spends $1,197 per month on non-essential items. That's nearly $18,000 per year being stolen from your field before it can be cultivated. Proverbs 21:5 warns, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." Hasty spending, impulsive consumption, buying things to feel abundant rather than actually building abundance. This is the poverty spirit's playground. Third, implement the Torah principle of bikurim, first fruits, immediately. In Proverbs 3:9-10, God commands, "Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine." This isn't about legalistic tithing, though that's valuable. This is about priority. Before you pay any bill, before you buy anything, before money flows anywhere else, you dedicate the first portion to God through giving, to your local church, to ministries feeding the poor, to causes advancing God's kingdom. Why? Because this act breaks the poverty spirit's grip on your mind. When you give first, you're declaring, "I don't serve money. Money serves God's purposes through me." This act of faith, combined with working your field, creates a spiritual opening for God to command blessing on your storehouses. Finally, develop what the Torah calls ayin tova, a good eye, instead of ayin ra, an evil eye. Stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. Stop scrolling through social media looking at other people's harvests while your field goes unworked. Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." If you think like a victim, you'll live like a victim. If you think like someone who has been given a field by God, equipped with talents, and promised blessing for faithful labor, you'll show up to that field every single day with gratitude, excellence, and expectation. This isn't positive thinking disconnected from reality. This is biblical faith married to biblical work, and that combination is unstoppable. Your transformation from debt to divine abundance doesn't begin when your circumstances change. It begins the moment you change how you engage with the field God has already given you. Shalom, my friends. We've journeyed together through an ancient wisdom that most modern Americans have never encountered. And if you've made it this far, you're already different from the millions who are still chasing fantasies instead of working fields. Let's bring this home with absolute clarity. God wants to bless you financially. The Torah is overwhelmingly clear about this. Deuteronomy 28 alone contains 14 verses describing the blessings God promises to those who obey His ways, and most of those blessings are material and economic. But, and this is the but that changes everything, those blessings flow through a specific channel, and that channel is consecrated work in your assigned field. You cannot bypass this mechanism. You cannot manifest your way around it. You cannot claim abundance while your field sits unplowed. The universe isn't a cosmic vending machine. It's a divine economy with laws as real as gravity. And the fundamental law is this: you reap what you sow, but you must actually sow, and you must sow in your field, not someone else's.